You are attending the hearing officer public hearing for January 2nd, 2018. Today's meeting is called to order. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Williams. I'm the City of Tempe's hearing officer. The City of Tempe hearing officer is authorized by Arizona Revised Statutes and the City of Tempe Zoning and Development Code and has the duty to carry out the provisions and intent of the city's adopted general plan and zoning and development code. The hearing officer is granted the authority to conduct public hearings and review and either approve, continue, deny, or approve with conditions several types of cases, including use permits, variances, and property abatements. For example, on today's agenda, we actually have four actions we'll be taking, including reviewing and approving one set of meeting minutes, two use permit standard modifications, or two use permit standard requests, I should say, and two use permit requests. The following items have been removed from today's agenda in case you're here for agenda item number 2, the Cranick property abatement. That has been withdrawn as that property has been brought into compliance. Item number 2 on the agenda will not be heard today. As hearing officer, I have reviewed carefully the City of Tempe Community Development Department report on each of the items that are in the packet today and on our agenda, and I use the information in that report during today's discussion and deliberations. And additionally, I've driven by each of the properties that are on the agenda today to look at the property's general condition from the street, look at the neighboring properties, and that part of the community in general. If you are an applicant or interested citizen, when your request is called or when you wish to address the hearing officer, that's great. Just please step on up to the microphone and state your name and city of residence. Any person other than an applicant who wishes to speak about a case on today's agenda, and you're welcome to do that, should complete a white speaker card, which are on the table at the front of the room next to the podium, and there's some also speaker cards in the back of the room on the table as well. Please turn that speaker card in when you come on up to the podium. You're given about 3 minutes to speak. I think we'll have plenty of time today, so I wouldn't be concerned if you've got some additional material you'd like to discuss. Any person aggrieved by a decision of the hearing officer may file an appeal within 14 calendar days after the hearing officer has made a decision. So the deadline for appealing any decisions made today that are rendered today is 3 p.m. on January 16th, 2018. That's 3 p.m. on January 16th. And those appeals of the decisions of the hearing officer are then heard by either the Board of Adjustment or the Development Review Commission, whichever of those bodies is appropriate to that type of case. In the case of a property abatement, which we won't have any considered today, but just for public information, if the property owner does not bring the property into compliance after today's hearing, the city eventually takes the action within 2 weeks to go ahead and abate those nuisances on those properties that have code violations. Introductions before we get going. Over to my right are some of the city staff members, including Steve Abrahamson, our principal planner, Diane McGuire, administrative assistant, and Lee Jimenez, senior planner with the city. So without further ado, we'll jump into the agenda. We'll go to agenda item number 1, which is the consideration of the meeting minutes from 2 weeks ago for December 19th, 2017. I have reviewed those minutes. They are accurate, and they are hereby approved as presented. Thank you very much, staff, for that timely work over the holidays. And we're not going to hear item 2, as I mentioned, because that property has been removed from the agenda. So we'll go to agenda item number 3, which is the request for approval of 2 things. One is a use permit standard to reduce the front yard setback, and 2, a use permit to allow a rebuild for a 2-story single-family residence for the Yanis residence. This is case PL 170387. And the property is located at 709 South Priest Drive. The applicant is Raque Yanis. Mr. Jimenez, can we have a staff report?
Good evening, Hearing Officer Williams. My name is Lee Jimenez. I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Division, or Community Development Department, excuse me, in the Planning Division. The Yanis residence is located north of West University Drive and east of the South Priest Drive residential frontage street on lot 37 of the D-Bar L Rancho subdivision within the R16 single family residential district. The applicant, Roque Yanis, is requesting a use permit standard to reduce the required front yard building setback by 4 feet from 20 feet down to 16 feet, and a use permit to allow for a new 2-story single-family residence. The original single-family residence was located on the lot was completed in January 15th of 1959, and the zoning ordinance began requiring use permits for single-family residential second-story additions or rebuilds on December 19th, 1987. On July 10th, 1989, City Council authorized the raising of the original residence, thus requiring a use permit for any new 2-story single-family residence on this lot. So far to date, no public input has been received directly by staff. The applicant or the owner drafted a petition in support of requests and collected signatures from the neighbor to the north and south. And so based on the information provided by the applicant, the public input received, and the analysis provided in the staff report, staff supports this request and believes that the application meets the required criteria and will conform to the conditions provided in the staff report. And I'll be available should you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jimenez. I was happy to see letters of response letters from both next-door neighbors on this, so that's good work on the applicant or staff's job. Thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, I don't have any further comment or question on this case. Is the applicant here today? Come on up and welcome. Yep, microphone. We got to get you on the recording for forever to create our record. Welcome. Do you have any information you'd like to present today or any questions?
No additional information other than what I submitted with my application.
Are you ready to go build a home?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There are two approvals we're seeking today. One's a use permit standard for the setback, and one is the use permit for second story. Do you understand that? And there's some conditions attached to those use permits as recommended by staff. Any questions about those conditions?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
You're welcome to have a seat. If I need you, I'll call you back up.
Right,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Again, thanks for being here. Okay. We have a request for a use permit standard to reduce the front yard setback and a use permit to allow rebuild to a 2-story configuration. And looking at both those considerations, both those requests, a use permit standard and a use permit, I'm going to find that they do meet the criteria for approval as stated in our code, including any significant increase in pedestrian or vehicular traffic. This is a residential lot. It was planned to have a home on it with people coming and going, so this is expected in normal traffic. I feel that criteria is satisfied. Any nuisance arising from the emission of odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration. Again, it's a single-family residence. Other than the construction period, we'll have some noise and dust, I am sure. A single-family residence is not expected to add any unusual odor, emission, or gas, or noise, or vibration to the neighborhood if used as a residential structure as intended. Contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrading of property values, which would be in conflict with the city's adopted goals and objectives for rehab and redevelopment. And this is excellent infill, basically I would call it. When we take a vacant lot, we put a brand new home on it. That's investment in the neighborhood, and hopefully that will encourage the other neighbors to perhaps invest in their homes as well. And I certainly encourage that. The third criteria is well met. Number 4, compatibility with existing surrounding structures and uses. The proposed house is of similar design and similar size in terms of footprint to the homes adjacent to it and the immediate neighborhood. This is a 2-story home. I think it will fit well considering its location on Priest Drive and the character of the immediate area. There is other 2-story construction nearby, and I think it's compatible as presented. And number 5, control of disruptive behavior inside and outside of the premises. That might create a nuisance to the surrounding area. I don't expect your occupancy of a home will create nuisances to the neighbors. If they do, I'm sure we'll hear about that. But there's none expected, and I find this criteria to be met. So therefore, your requests for both use permit and use permit standard are approved, subject to the conditions in the staff report. And good luck with your building project. and Happy New Year. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 4, which is a request for approval of a use permit to allow vehicle sales, indoor vehicle sales, for P&L Auto Trading Group. This is case PL 170392. The property is located at 1841 East 6th Street. Applicants are Siwi Chen and Yang Pei. I apologize for bad pronunciation. Mr. Jimenez, can we have a staff report?
Good evening, once again. Lee Jimenez, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. P&L Auto Trading Group is proposing to operate a vehicle sales business in an industrial building located west of South Hacienda Drive and south of East 6th Street within the GID General Industrial District. The applicants, Siwei Shen and Young Pei, are rectifying a zoning and development code violation for operating a vehicle sales business without a proper use permit. So far to date, no public input has been received by staff, and based on the information provided by the applicant, the public input received, and the analysis provided in the staff report, staff supports this request and believes that the application meets the required criteria and will conform to the conditions provided in the staff report. And I'll be available should you have any questions.
Excellent. And as you mentioned, they're rectifying existing non-compliance or violation with this use. I did note that, and looks like they have a healthy business. I don't have any other questions or anything for you at the moment. Mr. Jimenez, thank you very much. Is the applicant here or their representative? Come on up today. And as many as you like is okay. Welcome.
Hello, officer. My name is Yan Pei. I'm a general manager for the P&L Auto Trading Group.
Great. Thanks for being here today. Do you have any information you wanted to present today or any questions?
No.
Okay. Staff has recommended approval. There are a list of conditions. There's actually 5 of them in your case. Do you have any questions about those conditions of approval? Do you understand them?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. Any
Yep.
questions about them?
Nope.
Okay. Thanks for being here today. You're welcome to have a seat.
All right.
Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak on this case? I failed to do that on the prior case. I apologize. Okay. Not seeing anybody else interested in speaking. This is a request for a use permit for indoor vehicle sales in the general industrial district. It also has 5 approval criteria, including significant increase in vehicular and pedestrian traffic. That's not consistent with office and warehouse use. What's happening here with the auto dealership is this is an industrial area that is designed for this level of traffic, in my opinion, and it does not create any inconsistency or significant increase over what's designed and intended here. Any nuisance from odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, and smoke. Again, as a vehicle dealership, I don't expect any of those conditions or anticipate any of those conditions to be created. There may be some emissions related to automotive exhaust, but this is an industrial park, and they're not viewed by me as nuisance causing. Number 3, contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrading of property values, which would be in conflict with our goals and objectives adopted at the City of Tempe. Anytime we can get a productive and successful business into a vacant space or into the city, that is very consistent with our growth goals for economic development and supporting local businesses. So this actually contributes to improvements in the neighborhood. Compatibility with existing surrounding structures and uses. There's no changes exterior or to this building. It is an industrial building in an industrial park and is highly compatible with the neighborhood. And finally, control of disruptive behavior inside and outside of the premises. While there was a violation associated with this use at the property, the reason we're having a hearing today is to address that and get this business into compliance with city code. There's not been any complaints regarding disruptive behavior, just that we be code compliant. I find this criteria to be met by the application as proposed. Therefore, the use permit for the indoor vehicle sales approved, subject to the 5 conditions in the staff report, and good luck with your business, and Happy New Year. All right, let's go to our item number 5 on today's agenda. This is a request approval of a use permit standard to reduce the front yard setback. It's an open structure, in this case a carport, for the Peabody residence. It's case PL 170402. The property is at 5326 South El Camino Drive, and the applicant is Richard Peabody. Mr. Jimenez.
Good evening, once again.
Hey,
Lee
stranger.
Yanis, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department in the Planning Division. The Peabody residence is located on, located south of East Harbor Drive and west of El Camino Drive on Lot 225 of the University Royal Subdivision within the R16 Single Family Residential District. The applicant, Richard Peabody, is requesting a 3-foot setback reduction from 15 feet down to 12 feet for an attached 503 square feet, 2-vehicle carport addition. So far to date, no public input has been received by staff, and based on the information provided by the applicant, the public input received, and the analysis provided in the staff report, staff supports this request and believes that the application meets the required criteria and will conform to the conditions provided in the staff report. And I'll be available should you have any questions.
Very good. And I got 4 conditions, right? Mr. Jimenez, I'm not sure, I may be a little bit confused, but would this request also entail a neighborhood meeting? I meant to ask you that in the study session, I apologize.
This is a use permit standard application, no neighborhood meetings
So
required.
it's a variance would require.
For variances, yes.
Okay, I knew there wasn't a good answer. Excellent, thank you, that's all I've got. Okay, is the applicant here today, or their representative? Come on up. You're all welcome, as many want to come up. We need the name for everyone who does come up, and a speaker card for the non-applicant,
Already turned in the card.
Oh, we do. Oh, yes, and welcome, everybody. Larry, right?
Yes.
So I got your card, and you must be Mr. Peabody.
I'm Richard. I do live in Tempe.
Welcome. I appreciate your succinct, short letter. I like that. Okay, do you guys have any information you wanted to present today or any questions?
What were the conditions? I read through the stuff, but I don't remember.
Yeah, be happy to go over with them. They include, number 1, it's valid just only after a building permit has been obtained and the required inspections have been completed and a final inspection. So once it's built, thank you, Steve. Let's throw number 1. So once it's built to code and passes its inspection, your use permit is valid. And then it also includes any on-site stormwater retention that may be required to be verified. And I don't know that any is required, but it's a pretty standard language in case. If you're concerned about that, staff can get you to the right person to get that answer. And when we add roof area, it's going to concentrate some flow. And so how you handle that runoff of the roof is important. It doesn't create a nuisance for a neighbor, basically, is a goal there. And staff, if there's anything else you wanted to add, feel free to jump in. Number 2, it's valid for the plans as submitted. So we can't build a three-car carport for plans that showed a 2, for example. Number 3, you have an existing carport. This is going to come and be built in front of that,
Yes.
as I understand it and looked at it when I was on your street today. So the use permit, if you wanted to go back and enclose that original carport, you need approval to do that.
Right.
Use permit for that. So the 3rd condition says a use permit is required if the existing carport is ever converted to livable space. You want to enclose that, make it a bedroom or whatever. We need a use permit for that because it displaces a parking space is basically why. We don't care how many bedrooms you have or what you're doing in there, but we got to make sure the parking code's met in that case. And staff can help you with that too if that is something you do intend for the future and you want some advice about it. Staff's got real good information. And then finally, any expansion. So if you do want to go to 3 bays for 3 cars, you'll need a approval for that as well, a new use per standard approval. So those are the 4 conditions. Any questions about those? Clear as mud?
Yes.
Okay, great. Anything else you wanted to add?
I was just a draftsman on a project, and I was gonna.
Okay, well, thanks for being here, Larry. It's good if we do have questions that you're here.
Okay.
So we've got 3 conditions, and I'll be attaching those if we do an approval, just so you're aware. That's it, unless you've got anything else you wanted to bring up.
I do not.
Okay, thanks for being here and thanks for waiting till the end, too.
You bet.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience who wanted to speak on agenda item number 5, use permit standard for the Peabody residents? Seeing nobody appearing to do that, we're going to go ahead and take action to approve this use permit standard as recommended by staff, finding that no significant increase in traffic, either pedestrian or vehicular, is anticipated by adding a carport. No nuisance arising from odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, smoke, or heat from adding this carport. Probably some construction mess, but that's not unusual and that's expected. But number 2 criteria regarding nuisance is satisfied as far as I am understanding the application. Number 3, contribution to deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrading of property values. Anytime we see folks investing in their home and doing an improvement, we support that and like to see that. And it's quite the opposite, contributing to the improvement of the neighborhood. That criteria is easily met. Number 4, compatibility with existing surrounding structures. Carports all over the place there. It fits in just fine. The design looks consistent to me. So well done there on that aspect of the design. And number 5, adequate control of disruptive behavior inside and outside the premises, which could create a nuisance to surrounding areas or the public in general. There's no nuisance concern with the property today, no nuisance concern with adding a carport, provide shade and cover for additional vehicles, and no disruptive behavior or other nuisances anticipated by adding the carport. As such, then, the request for use permit standard is approved, subject to the 4 conditions in the staff report. And good luck with your project, and Happy New Year. Okay, that's our last agenda item today. Before we wrap things up, I want to ask staff, well, first of all, our next meeting will be Tuesday, December 16th, 2018. Here in the City Council chambers. And Mr. Abrahamson, anything you wanted to add or any announcements?
No, thank you, Mr. Williams.
You're most welcome, and Happy New Year to staff and all the staff I don't see every month or twice a month for their good work. Another good year, good support. It's appreciated. Today's hearing officer meeting is adjourned.